Blackboard here, and we'll put that up, and we'll put some text here. I'm trying to think, what is it? This is of our finest philosophical wizards. Because that's what they are. Scientists are just philosophical wizards, really. They try to disguise it, but they're just all a bunch of philosophers, a bunch of dramatic philosophers. And let's go ahead here and go back to this, to my reading mode. All right, the magical number 7, plus or minus 2, some limits in our capacity for processing information, by George Miller, 1956. My problem is I have been persecuted by an integer. For 7 years, this number has followed me around, has intruded in my most private data, has assaulted me from the pages of our most public journals. I'm not making this up. This is really what he wrote in a science journal. This is one of the most cited papers. They don't like to expose the inner palace intrigue of the philosophy wizards, but this is actually how scientists think and operate. This is very revealing. This is very telling. All right. For 7 years, this number has followed me around, has intruded in my most private data, and has assaulted me from the pages of our most public journals. This number assumes a variety of disguises. Let me throw it up so you guys can read it along. Okay, so he's talked about this thing is breaking into his private data, it's assaulting him, and it's followed him around. Like, he needs a restraining order against this number. And on top of it, it's for 7 years. So this is poetic. This is some fine literature. This number assumes a variety of disguises, being sometimes a little larger, sometimes a little smaller than usual, but never changing so much as to be unrecognizable. So it's like a shapeshifter, not a insanely high level shapeshifter, not like Mystique in the Marvel comics, like after 2000, where she can like change into a puddle or a flock of crows. Just, trying to think of a crappy shapeshifter. Because even Mystique before 2000 was pretty good shapeshifter. I mean, she wasn't melting out of puddles, but anyway, it's a shapeshifter. It's like a fantasy creature. It's chasing him. All right. Apparently, I moved my chair. All right. So this number that's assuming disguise is tormenting him. The persistence with which this number plagues me is far more than a random accident. There is, to quote a famous senator, a design behind it, some pattern governing its appearances. So now it's a conspiracy. Either there really is something unusual about the number, or else I am suffering from delusions of persecution. Let's give that a little more consideration. Now let's just go to the next paragraph and keep writing. After all, you're in a psychology department, so there could be nothing wrong with you. All right. I shall begin my case history by telling you some experiments that tested how accurately people can assign numbers to the magnitudes of various aspects of a stimulus. So this guy really, and this probably is more indicative of the times. You know what they teach you in high school to have a catchy intro sentence? perhaps some of you are still being taught this. I don't know. I'm still not clear what the demo of my audience is here, but this guy fleshed it out in a full paragraph, which is pretty good level, pretty high level, and did it in a science journal. Yeah, and the rest of it is just reading on in the traditional language of psychology that would be called experience and absolute judgment. And there's still a little drama, and even in his further paragraphs, right? Historical accident, however, has decreed that they should have another name. I mean, this isn't what you would consider scientific writing, right? We now call them experiments on the capacity of people to transmit information. So I feel like back in the day, the way they dug a moat around themselves, the philosophical wizards, the scientists, was to be very dramatic. But now they're more sophisticated. Now they use very obfuscating language and a lot of like feigned and mock seriousness. But there is a lot to learn from this. I mean, I could apply these lessons to my own attempts at my Twitch streams. Like, imagine I start my streams out from now on with this level of game. I tell you that I've been persecuted, followed, harassed, assaulted, and it's just the language of it too. It's just quite incredible. So anyway, yeah, I just thought you might be mildly interested to know that the way people write on Reddit or whatever game forums you like to visit, or is the way they used to write in science journals. They don't write like this anymore. They're a little more sophisticated. They talk like this, but they just don't write like this. But yeah, I don't know. I found it very amusing back in the day. And my AMA is still active. It's crazy. I thought I had my notifications turned off, but somebody asks, yeah, this segment's over basically. I just thought it was funny. But yeah, so basically he did some sort of short-term memory experiments. Then here's where they import the heavy language, right? Information theory. And there's probably more technical language later on. I see some mentions of variance and covariance. Yeah, these psychology articles are the worst. They're just like long, rambling mini novellas. They're more in like art than science. They're more for like entertainment and the consumption rather than delivering like a very brief, condensed report. So it's kind of something to be aware of if you try to write psychology articles. So if you read anything written by psychology researchers, that's not the same as psychiatry or qualitative psychiatry. I mean, quantitative psychiatry, oddly, is very verbose. Like the articles can be like 20 pages long, no joke. But yeah, this is their early on attempts to measure quantitative things about how the brain works. And this paper is highly cited, and it's essentially, they say memory span, short-term memory, but it's very related to working memory. We just have this very very specific definition of it when we use these terms. So working memory means something very specific, but it's all kind of related. So yeah, that ends our dramatic reading of our Finest Philosophical Wizards segment. Whether it's a recurring segment, we will see.